Hey guys, and welcome to the very first episode of Kai Talks Combat. On this channel, I'll be talking all things boxing and combat sports. My name's Kai, and I've been a boxing and combat sports fan for the longest time. I spend all my time watching fights, and when I'm not watching fights, I'm watching all the fight content on social media and YouTube, and I thought, why not have a go at creating my own? And that is how, ladies and gentlemen, Kai Talks Combat was incepted. And I thought, what better way to launch the channel than by talking about the historic night of boxing we all witnessed at Wembley on Saturday night. It's Wednesday evening. We're a few days removed from the event, and I've had a few days to digest what we witnessed, and wow, ladies and gentlemen, what an event, what an evening of boxing, and what an upset. My dad and I were actually amongst the 96,000 fans in attendance, and the atmosphere was absolutely electric. But what an event. It had everything. It had drama, it had upsets, it had some questionable scorecards, it even had one half of Oasis, but more importantly, it had some absolute scraps, and that is all you can ask for, lads. An absolutely crazy night. In this video, I'll be breaking down my kind of immediate thoughts and reaction to the night, and in particular the main event, and then perhaps in other videos I'll do some more in-depth breakdowns around specific fights and so forth. But we have to start by talking about the main event. What an upset. Very bittersweet moment, right? You know, absolutely gutted for AJ, but delighted for Dubois. Who saw that coming? I certainly didn't. I know a lot of people certainly didn't. And if you did see Dubois winning, you certainly didn't see him winning in that devastating of a fashion. I mean, that was a one-sided beatdown he put on AJ. Dubois in the lead up to the fight was talking about needing to be the Kingslayer, and he went in there and he did just that. Let's start by talking about the ring walks. A lot of talk about the ring walks and Dubois being made to walk out first. Very much a theme, and very much in theme with the whole fight promotion, wasn't it? It was AJ versus Dubois on the bill. It was Dubois making the walk first. I know some people were upset about that. I get it. And I understand why. You know, he's the champ and he should be treated with the respect of being the champ and all things that come with that. Was very unusual of a setup, you know, a champion being made to walk out first and being second on the bill, etc. But you have to understand, AJ was the commercial draw. He just was. The crowd, I have to admit, myself included, were there to see what we all thought would be a fairly routinistic AJ win, particularly given how good AJ looked following the Wallin and Ngannou fights, and we can talk about those fights and the legitimacy of those fights in other videos as well. But, you know, AJ was dubbed to be in the form of his life, coming off of those performances, right? And in equal measure, I don't think Dubois really cared. I think, you know, he wanted to show everyone just how wrong we all were, and my gosh, how wrong were we all. So Bruce Buffer calls Dubois to the ring. Boos echo out throughout the stadium. It was very much an AJ crowd. You know, we're in AJ's stomping ground, Wembley. We're in AJ territory, and Dubois was very much behind enemy lines. Dubois comes out of the tunnel to fire dancers and 50 Cent in the club blasting. Immediately gets a positive reaction from the crowd, right? A few head bops, and he looked game. He looked game. He looked ready, despite everyone saying, he was going to shrink at the occasion. Oh, he's never fought in front of that many people. He's not going to know what to do with himself. He'll freeze up. He did the absolute opposite. He looked ready to go. He was loose. He was amped up. And he looked like a man ready to go to war. The boos continued. Daniel just seemed to feed off of it and feed off of the energy of the occasion. By the time he was almost at the ring, he was screaming and shouting, "Let's go," and amping himself up. Next up, AJ makes the walk. He comes out to the Mafia-esque, Godfather-esque violin music. And having now watched it back, in my opinion, you can tell something isn't quite right. He looks really relaxed, almost too relaxed. At the same time, almost looks a little bit tentative and perhaps a little bit apprehensive as well. Very different demeanour to the one that he had in his walkouts to, say, Wallin or Ngannou, where he looked a little bit edgy and looked like he had a bit of a chip on his shoulder. I just felt that sort of energy wasn't there at Wembley on Saturday. Chants of, "Oh, Anthony Joshua," fill the air. Again, it's his crowd. It's to be expected. This is his stadium. During the walkout, I think at one point the music cuts out, and there's a Wembley "Guess Who's Back." Crowd erupts with a roar. Right, AJ's home. To many, this was his crowning moment, and this was his moment. He was going to beat Dubois in fairly convincing fashion, and then that was going to tee up a undisputed fight between him and the winner of Fury and Usyk. I think throughout the broadcast, someone was telling me, that's all they were talking about, throughout the broadcast was, when if AJ wins, this is going to set up a fight with Fury or Usyk, and it was all that they were talking about. Dubois just did not get a copy of that script. He just did not get a copy of that script, man. And when he did, he took it and he went and threw it out the window, right? He dashed it. In the ring, Dubois pacing around like a caged animal, ready to go. The bell goes, and immediately, Dubois in AJ's face. He's taking the center of the ring. He throws a jab, closes the distance. Straight away, he's on the front foot with that jab. Doesn't give AJ a second to settle in and kind of find his pace. He's on him from the get-go. Like I say, starts taking the center of the ring, and boom, clips AJ with a big right hand. AJ was just, AJ was just so defensively irresponsible. His hands were down at the lower part of his chest rather than being high up. His chin was right up in the air, and I just don't get it. He made so many mistakes, which I'm sure we'll go into. The right hand lands at the end of the first round, and down goes AJ. And that pretty much, sums up how the rest of the fight went. In the second, we were all, on the edge of our seats with anticipation. We expected, Dubois to, capitalize on the success of the first, but the momentum faded. Was a fairly calm second round. The third round, saw Joshua rattled again by Dubois, almost immediately, fresh out of the gate. And then again, just before the bell, Dubois, smashes, Joshua to the ground with Joshua's gloves touching the floor before he was knocked to the canvas again. And then, of course, in the fourth, Joshua was down on the ground in the opening seconds, and then moments later he was knocked down again, which was of course ruled a slippage, strangely. I mean, maybe it was, it looked like a knockdown to me. And, you know, Joshua was just all over the place, man. He was just all over the place. Lots of clinching in the fight. Joshua was heavier than Dubois on the night. I can't remember their exact weights, but I think Joshua was 4 or 5 pounds heavier than Dubois, maybe even more. And he looked like the lighter man in there, and Dubois looked like the stronger man, and he was certainly acting like the general in the ring. And you know, into the fifth, as we all know, you know, Joshua had a moment, you know, where he clipped Dubois with a couple of backhands, had Dubois hurt, had his left leg doing the stanky leg. The whole crowd screams. We think, is AJ going to pull it back? And then as he drops his guard and delivers the uppercut, Dubois with a very short backhand clips AJ, and that was all she wrote. You know, Joshua was comprehensively and decisively beaten down, and didn't meet the count. Yeah, guys, it was a comprehensive beatdown. And as much as it was a poor performance from AJ, you know, you almost don't want to say that, because it almost kind of detracts from the incredible performance of Dubois. And yeah, it was incredible. It was incredible. Like I say, immediately when it happened, in all honesty, my immediate reaction was a reaction of, oh, you know, I felt like I'd been kind of punched to the stomach myself. You know, like I say, big AJ fan, you know, was rooting for AJ, was absolutely gutted. Selfishly also, you know, wanted to see, you know, that big fight, you know, between the winner of, you know, Fury and Usyk, the rematch in December. Was silently hoping that would be Fury and we'd have an all-British undisputed heavyweight fight, and an all-British undisputed heavyweight champion at the end of that. But yeah, I mean, does that still happen? Does the fight between Fury and AJ still happen? You know, only time will tell. I'll talk about what I think is next for Joshua in another video. But yeah, what a crowning moment for Dubois. You know, he said he was going to do it. Frank Warren said he was going to do it. Don Charles said he was going to do it. His dad said he was going to do it. And I just thought, guys, it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. You know, I can't see a world in which he beats AJ. I mean, in my mind, it was a case of it's too much, too soon. AJ's the more experienced operator. You know, he is going to take Dubois into dark waters that perhaps he hasn't been in before. But I was completely wrong. I was absolutely wrong. Was absolutely gutted for AJ immediately when it happened. Like I say, huge AJ fan, and you know, seeing him go down like that and you know, get so comprehensively beat by Dubois like that, instant reaction was, oh man. But like I say, equally absolutely delighted, you know, for Daniel Dubois. Like I say, what a crowning moment. You know, people were calling him an email champion prior to this fight. That fight legitimized him as a champion. Daniel Dubois is the real deal, ladies and gentlemen. And I think, you know, whatever special recipe, you know, Don Charles and his dad and his team have in camp, you know, they've got something really special with Daniel. You know, Hrgovic, who was the boogeyman of the division, clinically destroyed in his last outing. Jarrell Miller, Was slobbering all over Daniel. Daniel had to come through adversity in that fight, clinically destroyed. And now Anthony Joshua, the biggest win of his career, and it was made to look like a walk in the park on a Sunday morning. Dubois on to bigger and better things. Would really like to see him face off against the winner of Usyk and Fury, whoever comes out top on the rematch in December. I'd imagine there'll be a bit of a wait, and a recovery time needed sort of post that fight. So perhaps we see him out again before he fights the winner of those two. I think Frank maybe even mentioned an outing in December. So could that mean that he fights on the undercard of Fury and Usyk? Who knows? I would really like to see him fight Parker. If that's the case, I think Parker has been waiting in the sidelines and, deserves that fight. So I think if we do see Dubois fight between now and then, I would like to see that be Parker. As for what's for AJ, is there a rematch clause? Isn't there a rematch clause? There's a lot of talk whether there is or isn't. Does he trigger the rematch clause if there is a rematch clause? I think Dubois and Frank Warren and Don Charles and the team would really welcome that fight, right? It's probably the biggest fight commercially for them out of the lot that they can choose from, and outside of the undisputed fight, right? But I mean in the immediate future. They're going to fancy that fight. They've beat him comprehensively the first time. They're going to think that they can do it even easier, the second time, right? So, I think Dubois and his team would fancy that fight. Should AJ take the fight is another question entirely, and I guess we'll cover that in another video. But wow, what an upset! I think we'll leave it there. I think we'll leave it there today. We'll just touch upon AJ and Dubois today, and then we'll cover some of the other fights in other videos. But hope you guys all enjoyed. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. Like I say, guys, this will be the first of many. You'll have to bear with the production quality. Like I say, we're still figuring out things as we go along. As you can see, we've got some lovely studio background here in the spare room /home office. We've got the lovely floral curtains in the background that the missus has chosen for the room. And like I say, no fancy microphones or cameras filming off of my iPhone. But hopefully as time goes on, these things will be improved. Hopefully the editing skills aren't too bad. Again, those will be improved. But and like I say, like, subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next one.